How can a normal Thanksgiving dinner turn into a call to the authorities? Why did I walk into my daughter's pantry looking for sugar and find signs that my name was being used behind my back? What I saw in that small room changed how I looked at my own family. My name is Glen Carter. I am 59 years old. I have a quiet job history. I worked for years in compliance and records. I learned to stay calm and to write things down. I am not a loud man. I do not like big scenes. I do not like to fight in front of people. I grew up believing a father should keep his voice steady, even when he feels small. Thanksgiving used to be simple for me. When my daughter Lena was little, I cooked most of the food myself. I did it after work, tired but proud. I would make the table look nice. I would set out her favorite plate. I would watch her smile when she saw the pie. Those memories still sit in my mind like old photos. Now Lena is 33. She has her own house. She has a husband named Bryce. Bryce is 36. He has a way of filling a room with his voice. People turn toward him without thinking. This year, Lena told me they were hosting at their place. She said they wanted to do it right and invite everyone. She also said it would mean a lot if I came early because they had many things to finish. I heard the tone. It sounded like a request, but it also sounded like a test. I said I would come early. I said I could help with small tasks. I drove over with a simple dessert and a small gift bag for Lena. I also brought a little container of sugar packets from my kitchen. I keep them because my blood sugar can drop sometimes. It is not a dramatic problem if I pay attention. I eat on time. I carry a snack. I drink water. I do not want people to worry, so I try to manage it quietly. When I arrived, Bryce opened the door. He looked me up and down like he was checking a list. He did not greet me with warmth. He told me they were busy and told me to put the dessert on the counter. He spoke like I was a delivery person. I nodded and walked in. I reminded myself that it was my daughter's home. I told myself I did not come to be praised. I came to be present. The house was full of noise already. Bryce's mother Mara was there, moving fast and talking fast. She directed people like a manager. She told Lena to change the plates, then told Bryce to check the oven, then told someone to bring more chairs. Lena looked tired. She also looked like she wanted to impress them. When she saw me, she gave me a quick hug. It was short and careful, like she did not want to wrinkle her outfit. I offered to help. Lena pointed me to the living room and said I could keep out of the way for a bit. She said there was not much to do. That stung more than I expected. I stood there holding my gift bag, feeling like a piece of furniture. Bryce walked past me and asked if I brought anything useful. He said it with a smile, but it was not a kind smile. I said I brought dessert and a gift for Lena. He said that was fine, then he turned away. More people arrived. A cousin named Quinn came in with a phone already aimed at faces. Quinn filmed the food, the decorations, and the group in the kitchen. Quinn said they wanted to capture the moment. Quinn also kept pushing the phone close to people, waiting for big reactions. I stayed back. I do not like cameras pointed at me. I also did not want to look stiff on a video. Soon everyone gathered near the dining table. Bryce made sure he stood at the center. He told stories about work and money. He talked about a recent trip they took. He talked about upgrades he wanted for the house. I noticed he never used words like "we saved" or "we planned." He spoke as if things just happened because he wanted them. Lena nodded along. When I tried to add a small comment, Bryce talked over me. It happened more than once. Each time I stopped and let him continue, I told myself it was not worth it. At one point, someone asked me how I liked retirement life. I am not retired, but people assume I am because I do not boast. Before I could answer, Bryce said I had it easy and that I was lucky I could keep things simple. He said the world was different now. He said young families needed more support, and older people did not always understand. Mara nodded hard and said families had to stick together. She looked at me when she said it, like she meant one direction only. I kept my face calm. I said I understood. I said it sounded like they had a lot on their plate. I kept my voice quiet. Inside, I felt my chest tighten, not with anger, but with that slow feeling of being pushed aside. I have lived that feeling before. It is the feeling of being useful only when someone needs something. Dinner started. The food looked good. Lena had worked hard. I wanted to tell her I was proud. But every time I leaned toward her, Bryce stepped in. He poured drinks. He made jokes. He corrected her small words. He acted like the host and the teacher. Lena laughed in a way that sounded practiced. She glanced at me once, then looked away. About 20 minutes into eating, I felt light. It started as a small wave. Then it became a stronger swing, like the room moved a little. I knew the signs. I needed sugar. I did not want to stop dinner with a big announcement. I did not want Bryce or Mara to roll their eyes and make it into a joke. So I stood up slowly and said I needed to step into the kitchen for a moment. Bryce asked where I was going. He said it loud enough for people to hear. I said I was fine and just needed something small. He said they had plenty of food on the table. Mara said I should sit down and not be dramatic. I did not answer her. I kept moving. I focused on steady steps. I held the back of a chair for a second, then let go. In the kitchen, the noise was softer. I opened a drawer and did not see sugar packets. I checked a cabinet and saw flour and spices, but nothing quick. The light in my head felt worse. I tried to breathe slow. I told myself I only needed a small amount. I saw a door to the pantry near the fridge. I opened it and stepped inside. The pantry was narrow and crowded. Shelves were full. There were boxes, cans, and extra serving trays. At first, I only looked for sugar. I scanned the shelf where baking items usually sit. I found a bag of sugar on a higher shelf. I reached for it, but my hand brushed a stack of paper that did not belong there. The paper slid forward. A few envelopes fell. I froze. The envelopes had my name on them, my full name. Not just Glen, but the middle initial too. The return addresses were from places that looked official, like a credit union and a county office. I did not expect any mail like that at my daughter's house. I do not have mail delivered there. I pay for my own place. I keep my own mailbox. I keep my own files. I do not hand out my information unless I have to. I picked up the envelopes and looked closer. They were not old. The corners were sharp. Some looked unopened. One looked like it had been opened, then resealed. My hand stayed steady, but I felt colder. I looked around more. Behind a stack of party napkins, I saw a small plastic container with a lid. It was pushed far back, like someone did not want it seen. I did not dump it out. I did not tear anything. I did not want to damage anything. I took the container out carefully and opened it just enough to see what was inside. I saw copies of forms with blank lines and my name typed in certain places. I saw small slips with numbers written down. I saw a couple of cards that looked like they belonged in a wallet, but they were not mine. I felt my stomach drop. It looked like a little workstation for using someone's name. I stood there in silence. My dizziness was still there, but the shock made it sharper. I remembered how Bryce asked for useful things. I remembered how Mara talked about families sticking together. I remembered Bryce bringing up support and acting like I did not understand. I also remembered small moments over the last year, like Lena asking me odd questions about my accounts, or Bryce mentioning paperwork and saying it was boring and that I should let them handle it. I had laughed it off. I told myself it was nothing. In that pantry, it did not feel like nothing. I closed the container and put it back where I found it, but not exactly the same way. I wanted to be sure I remembered it. I placed the envelopes back too. I did not want someone to walk in and accuse me of making a mess. I took a slow breath and reached for the sugar bag. I poured a small amount into my palm and ate it. It was not pleasant, but it helped. I leaned against the shelf for a moment and let my head clear. I left the pantry and washed my hands. I looked at my face in the dark window above the sink. I did not look angry. I looked tired. I told myself one thing very clearly. If my name was being used without my permission, this was not a family argument. This was a serious matter. If I tried to solve it with a talk in the living room, it would turn into tears and blame and pressure. The only safe way was to let the proper system handle it. I walked back toward the dining room. I did not go all the way in. I stayed near the hallway and listened. People were laughing. Plates were clinking. Bryce was telling another story. I heard Lena laugh again, that same practiced laugh. No one noticed I was gone longer than a minute. That hurt in a plain, quiet way. But it also made the next step easier. I did not owe them a scene. I stepped outside through the side door and walked to my car. The air was cold and clean. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. My hands did not shake. I took out my phone and opened my notes. I typed the time. I typed what I saw in simple words. I typed the location. I typed the names on the envelopes. Then I called the non-emergency line. I asked to speak to someone about possible identity misuse and suspicious mail found at a private residence. The person on the line asked me calm questions. I answered calmly. I said I was at a family gathering. I said I found mail in my name that should not be there. I said I found items that made me worry someone was using my information. I said I did not touch more than necessary. I said I wanted guidance on what to do next. The person told me an officer could come to take a report. I said I wanted that. I said I would wait in my car. When I ended the call, I stared at my hands for a moment. They looked the same as always. I felt a strange mix of sadness and clarity. I did not feel like I was getting revenge. I felt like I was stepping out of a role I never agreed to. I looked at the front window of the house. Inside, the lights were bright. Shadows moved behind the curtains. I could still hear faint laughter when the wind shifted. I sat still and breathed slowly. I kept my phone on my lap. I told myself I would stay polite. I told myself I would not argue. I would speak in facts. I would let the next steps be official and clean. I waited there, quiet, while Thanksgiving continued without me. The officer arrived about 20 minutes later. He parked across the street and walked up to my car. His face was calm. His voice was calm. He asked if I was the caller. I said I was. I showed my ID through the window first. Then I stepped out slowly so he could see I was steady. I told him I felt light at the table and went to the pantry to find sugar. I told him I found envelopes with my name on them that did not belong there. I told him I also saw a small container with paperwork that made me worried. I said I did not take anything. I said I put things back because I did not want to damage anything. I said I wrote down the time and the basic details in my phone. He listened and asked simple questions. He asked if anyone had permission to receive my mail. I said no. He asked if I had ever signed something for my daughter and her husband that could connect my name to their home. I said I had helped them in the past, but I did not authorize mail there. He asked if I was willing to speak inside the house so he could note the scene properly. I said yes, but I wanted it to stay calm and professional. We walked to the door. The house smelled like food and warm spices. It felt strange to enter with an officer beside me. It felt like stepping into a room where everyone was playing a game, and I was the only one who could hear a different sound under it. Bryce opened the door again. His smile came fast. He looked from my face to the officer's uniform and back to my face. He asked what this was about. The officer said he was responding to a report and needed to ask a few questions. Bryce tried to laugh it off. He said it must be a misunderstanding. He said family problems should stay inside the family. The officer said he understood, but he still had a duty to document reports. Bryce's smile got thinner. Lena appeared behind him, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked confused at first. Then her eyes landed on me, and her expression changed. She looked like someone who just realized the room had been watching. I spoke before Bryce could. I said I did not come to cause a scene. I said I felt unwell, went to the pantry, and saw mail in my name. I said I could not ignore it. I said I did the proper thing and made a report. Lena's mouth opened, then closed. She said she did not know anything about mail. Bryce said he did not know either. Mara walked up from the dining room, loud and sharp. She asked why an officer was in their house on a holiday. She said it was not right. She said it made them look bad. The officer asked everyone to keep their voices calm. He asked to see the pantry. Bryce said it was not necessary. He said I was confused. He said my health issues could make me imagine things. I felt a small sting at that, not because I doubted myself, but because he was trying to paint me as unreliable in front of a professional. I said my head had cleared after I ate sugar. I said I knew what I saw. I said I was willing to show the officer exactly where it was. I did not touch anything else. I did not accuse anyone directly. I said I needed it documented. The officer walked with me to the pantry. Bryce followed close like he wanted to control the angle of the moment. Lena trailed behind, quiet. Mara stayed in the hallway but kept commenting. She said this was what happens when people do not trust family. She said this was ungrateful. I did not respond. I kept my eyes on the shelf where the envelopes had fallen. I opened the pantry door and pointed to the place. The envelopes were still there, but they were shifted. The small container was not where I left it. My stomach tightened. I did not show it on my face. I simply said the items had been placed behind the party supplies. I said they were now moved. The officer looked around and took notes. He asked if anyone had been in the pantry since I left. Bryce said people had been in and out all night. He said it proved nothing. The officer asked if anyone could explain why mail in my name would be in their pantry. No one gave a clear answer. Lena said she did not know. Bryce said maybe it got mixed up by mistake. Mara said it was not a big deal. The officer asked if he could take the envelopes to log them properly. Bryce hesitated. Then he said they could do whatever they needed. His voice sounded polite, but his eyes were hard. The officer placed the envelopes into an evidence sleeve. He asked me to confirm the spelling of my name and the addresses on the return lines. I did. He told me he would file a report and that I could follow up with the department if needed. He also told me, in a quiet tone, that if I was worried about identity misuse, I should contact my bank and credit union as soon as possible. He said they have processes for this. He said it was smart to act early. We returned to the entryway. Bryce said again that it was a misunderstanding. He said we could talk like adults. He said we did not need to involve outsiders. I said I understood his feelings, but this was not about feelings. I said it was about my name and my records. I said I would follow the proper steps. Lena's eyes filled. She asked if I could come back to the table. She said people were looking. She said it would be embarrassing if I left now. That word, embarrassing, sat heavy. She did not ask if I was okay. She did not ask why my mail was there. She asked how it would look. I told her I needed quiet. I said my health needed calm. I said I would go home. I said we could speak later, when things were clear and not emotional. She reached out like she wanted to hold my arm, then she stopped. Bryce said I was being dramatic again. Mara said I was punishing the family. I nodded once like I heard them, then I left. In my car, my hands stayed steady, but my chest felt tight with a familiar ache. It was not just the pantry. It was the way my daughter spoke about embarrassment. It was the way Bryce spoke about my health like it was a tool. It was the way everyone assumed I would bend if they pushed hard enough. On the drive home, I thought about how we got here. It did not start in one day. It grew slowly, like a small crack in a wall that widens when nobody repairs it. When Lena was young, it was just the two of us most of the time. Her mother left early. I will not go into details because that is her story, not mine. But the result was simple. I raised Lena. I worked steady hours. I packed lunches. I learned how to braid hair from a neighbor. I sat through school events and clapped until my hands were sore. When Lena had a fever, I stayed up. When she had a bad dream, I sat at the edge of her bed and spoke softly until she slept. Money was always tight back then. I did not complain to Lena. I did not want her to feel that weight. I learned to plan and to say no to myself so I could say yes to her. I kept a small notebook of expenses. I tracked bills. I built good habits because I had no choice. When Lena went to college, I helped as much as I could. I did not have a large savings, but I had careful credit and steady income. I helped with books. I helped with travel. I helped when she needed a new laptop. Each time, she thanked me. She hugged me. She said she knew I was doing my best. Back then, she respected what I did. Then she met Bryce. At first, he was charming. He spoke with confidence. He made plans quickly. He said he wanted a strong family. He said he respected that I raised Lena alone. He said he wanted to make life easier for her. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. After they married, the tone shifted. It started with small things. Bryce would answer questions directed at Lena. Bryce would explain my own stories back to me as if I had forgotten them. Bryce would make jokes about old-school habits, like saving receipts and reading forms. People laughed, and I smiled along because I did not want to look sensitive. Lena changed too. She got used to Bryce speaking first. She started watching his face before she answered. She started using phrases he used. When I visited, I noticed she would talk about our goals and our image. She began to measure moments by how they looked on a screen. I still tried to support them. When they bought the house, they asked for help with the down payment. They said it was temporary. They said it would help them build stability. I agreed with some clear conditions. I am a careful person. I do not hand over money without structure. I did not think of it as power. I thought of it as protection for everyone, including them. At the time, Bryce seemed fine with it. He said he respected how organized I was. Over the next year, I noticed odd requests. Lena would ask for my exact address spelling, even though she had it. Bryce would ask what bank I used, like he was making conversation, but it felt too detailed. Once, Lena asked what my middle initial stood for. That was strange, because she knew it. I asked why she was asking. She said she was updating emergency contacts. I accepted it, even though it did not fully make sense. I also saw how they treated my time. They invited me when they needed help moving furniture or fixing something. They did not invite me when they went out with friends. When I brought it up gently, Lena said they were busy. She said not everything was personal. Bryce said I should find hobbies. He said I had too much time to think. The worst part was the way they talked about my quiet nature. Bryce would imply I was confused or slow when I asked a question. He did it with a smile, like it was friendly. But it trained the room to doubt me. Lena started doing it too, without noticing. If I questioned a plan, she would say I was worrying too much. If I asked for details, she would say I was making things hard. By the time we reached this Thanksgiving, the pattern was set. I was there to show up, to bring a dish, to hand over support when asked, and to stay out of the spotlight. The pantry broke that pattern because it suggested something more serious. It suggested my name was being treated like a tool on a shelf. When I got home that night, I sat on my couch and drank water. I ate a small meal and waited for my body to feel normal again. Then I opened my phone. There were missed calls from Lena. There were also messages from a new group chat. It had a bright holiday picture as the icon. The title was something like Family Thanks. The messages were already moving fast. Bryce was writing first and writing the most. He was framing the night as a misunderstanding. He was telling people not to worry. He was suggesting I had gotten confused and stressed. Mara added messages about respect and gratitude. Quinn sent a short video clip from earlier at the table, the moment when I stood up and walked away. I read it all without replying. I set the phone down. I looked at the quiet room around me. I felt sad, but I also felt something steady forming under that sadness. I could see how quickly they tried to control the story. I could see they cared more about the image than the truth, and I knew that if I wanted my life to stay safe and clean, I had to respond the same way I always had in my work, not with noise, with records. The next morning I woke up early, like I always do. My body felt normal again, but my mind was sharp and busy. I made plain oatmeal and drank water. I kept my phone face down on the table while I ate. I did not want to start the day with a fight in my hands. When I finally turned the phone over, there were more messages. Lena had called twice after I got home. She left one short voice message. She said she was upset and confused. She said Bryce felt attacked. She said I should have waited and talked to them first. She did not mention the envelopes. She did not ask what I saw. She only talked about how it looked. The group chat had grown overnight. Bryce wrote long messages about family and respect. He said I had a health moment and got scared. He said the officer was only there to make sure I was okay. That was not true, but it was clever. It turned the whole thing into a wellness story instead of a record story. Mara backed him up. She wrote that older people can get overwhelmed and that young families should not be blamed for small mistakes. Quinn replied with laughing emojis and said the clip was wild. I clicked the clip and watched it once. It showed me standing up, holding the back of my chair for a second, then walking away. It was not the worst thing in the world, but it did make me look shaky. It did not show the pantry. It did not show the envelopes. It did not show Bryce questioning me loudly. It showed only what they wanted people to see. I did not reply. I wrote down the time the clip was posted. I wrote down who shared it and what they claimed it meant. In my old work, we called this narrative control. People do it when they feel exposed. They try to shape the story first, so the truth looks like an excuse later. Around mid-morning, my phone buzzed with an alert from my credit union. It was one of those automatic notices I set up years ago. The message said there was an attempt to change contact details on my account. It was blocked because the system did not recognize the device. It asked me to confirm if it was me. I stared at the screen for a long moment. My first feeling was not anger, it was a cold, clean certainty. The pantry was not a mistake. The mail was not random. Someone had tried to move my information from a distance, and they failed only because I set simple protections in place. I called the credit union right away. I kept my voice calm. I said I got an alert and needed to verify activity. The person on the line asked security questions. I answered. Then I asked what exactly was attempted. She said someone tried to update my phone number and mailing address. She said it was stopped by the system. She asked if I knew who might do that. I said I did not want to guess. I said I wanted a formal note made and I wanted my account flagged for extra verification. She said they could do that. She also suggested I come in person to speak to their specialist team. She said they could explain next steps and help me protect my accounts. I thanked her. I scheduled a visit for that afternoon. When I ended the call, I sat back on my chair and looked at my kitchen wall. I realized something important. If they were comfortable enough to try this, they believed I would not fight. They believed I would be embarrassed and quiet. They believed I would accept a story that made me look confused. That was the moment the switch flipped for me. Not a rage switch, more like a light turning on in a dark room. I understood that soft talks and family meetings would not fix this. It had moved into systems and records. So I would respond inside systems and records. I would do it step by step. I would not beg for respect. I would require proper boundaries. Before I went to the credit union, I called my brother Nolan. Nolan is older than me, but he has always been sharp. He listens before he speaks. When he picked up, I told him I needed a simple lunch meeting. I did not explain everything on the phone. I just said it was serious and I wanted his advice. He said to meet at a small diner near my place. At the diner, I told Nolan what I saw in the pantry. I told him about the alert from my credit union. I told him about the group chat and the clip. Nolan did not act shocked. He did not raise his voice. He just nodded slowly. Then he told me something that stayed with me. He said people who rely on image will always attack the image first. He said that is why they posted the clip. He also said I should stop thinking like a father for a moment and start thinking like a person whose name must be protected. He asked me if I had ever given Lena and Bryce access to my mail, my accounts, or my personal papers. I said no. He asked if I had ever signed anything that connected my help to their home. I said yes, but I had done it carefully and through proper channels. Nolan told me to keep that detail quiet for now and to speak to someone professional. He said families can be loud, but paperwork is not loud. Paperwork is final. After lunch, I drove to the credit union branch. I chose one I trust, not the closest one. I walked in with a folder, but the folder was mostly empty. It held only my ID and a notebook. I did not bring personal documents from home. I did not want to carry anything that could be lost or copied. A woman named Tessa met me in a small office. She spoke in a calm, professional tone. She asked me to explain what happened. I told her the facts. I told her about the pantry mail. I told her about the contact change attempt. I told her I did not want to accuse anyone without proof, but I needed my records protected. Tessa thanked me for being clear. She said many people come in with only feelings, and feelings are hard to log. She said the best thing was to create a formal trail. She reviewed my account and confirmed the attempted change. She asked if I wanted to strengthen access rules. I said yes. She suggested extra verification steps and alerts. She also suggested I review my credit reports and consider placing a protective notice. She explained the process in simple terms and gave me a list of steps to follow. While she spoke, I watched her face. She did not look like someone who thought I was confused. She looked like someone who saw a pattern she recognized. That mattered to me. It told me I was not imagining things. It told me this was a known kind of problem, and there were known ways to respond. After the meeting, I sat in my car and wrote more notes. I wrote what Tessa said, in plain words. I wrote down times, dates, and names. I did not write opinions. I wrote facts. Then I drove to a storage unit facility I had used years ago when I downsized. I had kept the account open because it was cheap and it gave me a safe place if I needed it. I rented a small unit again and got a new lock. Then I went home and gathered a few items that mattered. Nothing dramatic, old family photos, my personal keepsake box, my spare checkbook, a small safe that held backups and personal records. I did not want these things in a place where someone could reach them. I was not saying Lena would come to my condo and dig through my drawers, but I had learned not to rely on what I hoped people would do. I relied on what people could do if they chose. As I carried boxes to the unit, I felt a strange calm. It was not a happy calm. It was the calm of a person leaving a fog. I realized I had been trying to keep peace for a long time by shrinking myself. I had been careful not to upset Lena. I had been careful not to challenge Bryce. I thought that was love. In a way it was. But it also trained them to treat my boundaries like soft suggestions. That evening, Lena called again. This time I answered. Her voice sounded tired. She said Bryce was angry. She said Mara was upset. She said people were talking. She asked why I did this to them on a holiday. I listened. When she paused, I told her I did not do anything to them. I told her I acted to protect my name. I told her mail in my name was found in her pantry. I told her an account change attempt happened the next morning. I told her I could not ignore that. Lena said she did not know anything about mail. She said Bryce handles paperwork. She said maybe something got mixed up. She said maybe the officer overreacted. She also said I should stop talking to outsiders because it would make things worse. I heard how she placed blame, not on the action, but on the process. That told me a lot. I told her I loved her, but I would not discuss this in circles. I told her if she truly did not know, then she should be asking Bryce hard questions. I told her I would cooperate with the proper steps, and that is all. She asked if I was punishing her. I said no. I said I was protecting myself. Then I ended the call politely. Later that night, Bryce called me directly. He did not sound polite. He said I embarrassed him. He said I needed to fix it. He said he would come by my condo to talk face to face. I told him no. I told him I would not meet privately. I told him any communication could be through proper channels. He laughed and said I was acting like I was important. He said I was just making life hard for my own daughter. I did not argue. I repeated that I would not meet privately. Then I ended the call. I sat at my desk and looked at my calendar. I circled a few dates. One was the date of Thanksgiving, one was the date of the alert, one was the day I met Tessa. I also wrote down the name of someone I knew from years ago, a lawyer I had worked with on small matters. I did not call that night. I only wrote the name and placed it under my notebook. Before bed, I opened the group chat again. Bryce had posted another message. He said he hoped everyone would ignore drama. He said he wanted family unity. Mara wrote that some people forget who helped them and that gratitude matters. Quinn posted another short clip, this time from earlier, showing Bryce smiling and people laughing. The message under it suggested everything was fine until I made it weird. I did not reply. I took screenshots and saved them into a folder on my phone. I named the folder with a simple date format. Then I turned off my screen and sat in the dark for a minute. I felt sadness, yes, but I also felt something else. I felt the shape of a plan forming, not in details yet, but in direction. I knew they were going to keep pushing the story that I was confused and emotional, so I decided I would not give them anything emotional to hold. From now on, I would be the same in every message, the same in every call, and the same in every room. Calm, clear, consistent. That is how you win against people who live on noise. You do not outshout them. You let their noise hang in the air while you build a clean record under it. The next few days moved in a strange rhythm. On the surface, life looked normal. People still went to work. Shops still played holiday music. My neighbors still carried groceries. But for me, everything had a second layer now. Every call felt like a test. Every message felt like a push. I kept my routine steady on purpose. I woke early. I ate on time. I kept notes. I did not let myself drift into panic. On Monday morning, I called the police department and asked how to add more information to my report. I spoke to a desk clerk who sounded busy but polite. I gave my name and the report number. I said I had an alert from my credit union the morning after Thanksgiving. I said it was an attempted contact change. I said I wanted that fact added because it supported why I made the report in the first place. The clerk told me I could come in and provide an update in person. He said it would be easier than doing it by phone. I said I understood. I asked what hours were best. He suggested late morning. I wrote it down. Before I went, I checked my email and my account alerts again. I had turned on stronger notifications after meeting with Tessa. I also had a habit of checking my accounts once a week anyway, but now I did it daily. I did not look for a reason to worry. I looked for patterns. Nothing else had moved, but that did not comfort me. It only told me the person trying had paused. At the police station lobby, I waited near a row of plastic chairs. The room smelled like cleaning spray and coffee. A small TV played local news. People sat in silence, each in their own world. I reminded myself that I belonged there as much as anyone. I did not need to feel embarrassed for protecting my name. An officer came out and called my name. He led me to a small desk area and asked what I needed to add. I spoke slowly and clearly. I told him about the credit union alert and the time it happened. I told him I had already met with a specialist and strengthened access rules. I told him I could provide the name of the specialist if needed. I also told him my daughter and her husband had created a group chat narrative saying the officer came for my health. I said that did not match what happened, the officer typed while I spoke. He did not react with big facial expressions. He asked if I wanted to press for further action right now. I said I wanted a proper record first. I said I would follow whatever steps the department suggested. He nodded and said that was reasonable. He told me they might contact me later if the case moved forward. He gave me a card with a phone number and told me to keep it. When I left the station, I sat in my car for a minute and breathed. I did not feel triumphant. I felt steady. The record was now wider than one Pantry moment. It had an alert, a timeline, and a formal update. That mattered. That afternoon, I went to the county records office. I did not go because I wanted drama. I went because I needed clarity. The mail I saw in the pantry had one envelope with a return address that looked like county paperwork. I could not stop thinking about it. County offices do not send things for no reason. They send notices when something is filed, updated, or requested. If my name was connected to something at Lena's house, I needed to know. The county building was plain and quiet. The line moved slowly. When it was my turn, I asked the clerk what the process was to look up basic property records. I did not give a long story. I simply said I wanted to check public records linked to an address and confirm whether my name appeared in any way. The clerk told me what forms to fill out and where the computer kiosks were. I sat at a kiosk and typed in Lena's address. I did not print anything. I only read and took notes in my notebook. I wrote down dates of filings and the types of records listed. Some parts were hard to interpret without guidance, but I could see enough to understand there had been activity I did not remember being told about. I did not jump to conclusions. I only recorded what I saw and what I did not understand. While I was there, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lena. She asked if we could meet for coffee and clear the air. She said she was tired of tension. She said Bryce felt I was treating him like a stranger. I read it twice, then I put the phone back in my pocket. I answered later with a short message. I told her I was willing to speak, but not in person and not without structure. I told her we could use a calm phone call with clear topics. I told her I would not discuss the police report. I told her that was now in a formal process. I kept the message polite and simple. She replied quickly. She said I was making things worse. She said family should not need structure. She said I was turning her life into a problem. I did not reply after that. I saved the messages. The next day, Bryce tried a different tactic. He called me and spoke in a softer voice than before. He said he wanted to apologize for the holiday stress. He said he cared about family and did not want outside people involved. He said he could come by and help me feel safe again. The words felt practiced. It sounded like a speech meant to bring me back into the old role. I told him I appreciated the message, but I would not meet privately. I told him I was handling things properly. He paused, then said I was making him look bad. He said Lena was upset, and it was my fault. I told him I understood his feelings, but I would not change my steps. Then I ended the call. After that call, I did something I should have done earlier. I called Asha Patel. Asha is a lawyer I knew from my old work circles. Years ago, we worked on a small matter where I needed someone careful and plain. Asha was exactly that. She did not chase drama. She liked clean facts. I did not ask her to start anything immediately. I asked if she could spare time for a consultation about identity protection and family pressure. She said yes and gave me an appointment for later in the week. In the days before that meeting, I kept building my timeline. I did it like I used to build compliance files. 1 page per day. I wrote who contacted me, how they contacted me, and what they said in simple words. I wrote when I took steps with the credit union. I wrote when I went to the police station lobby. I wrote when I visited county records. I also wrote down that my daughter's family group chat was pushing a story that did not match reality. I did not feel good writing those things about Lena. It felt like I was writing about a stranger, but I also knew something else. If someone uses your name, they often rely on your shame to keep you quiet. They rely on you thinking, this is family, I should not write it down. I decided I would not carry shame for someone else's choices. On Thursday, I met Asha at her office. The building was quiet and clean. The waiting room had soft chairs and plain art on the wall. When she invited me in, she offered water. I accepted. Then she asked me to explain, from the start, what I found and what happened after. I told her the story in calm steps. I described the pantry. I described the envelopes. I described the container. I described how the items had been moved when the officer looked. I described the account alert the next morning. I described the pressure from Lena and Bryce to keep it inside the family. I also mentioned the online clip and the group chat narrative. Asha listened without interrupting. Then she asked direct questions. She asked if I had any written permission given to anyone to act for me. I said no. She asked if I had ever signed any paperwork that connected my help to Lena's home. I said yes, but I did it through proper channels and with clear conditions. I did not go into details. I only said it existed, and I knew where the records were stored. Asha nodded and told me to keep that private for now and not mention it to Lena or Bryce. She told me to keep using institutions, not arguments. She said I was doing the right thing by building a clean record. She also told me to stop answering long calls and stop explaining myself. She said explanations invite debate. She said short statements protect you. She suggested a simple line, that I would cooperate with formal processes and would not discuss details outside of them. I asked her if I should change my locks or move. She said basic safety steps were fine, but the main risk in my situation sounded like records misuse, not a home visit. She reminded me that fear can make people act too fast, and acting too fast can create mistakes in a timeline. I appreciated that. I did not want to do anything messy. I wanted to stay clean. When I got home, I felt lighter in a strange way. Not because the problem was solved, but because I had a clear path. I was not guessing anymore. I had professional advice that matched what my instincts told me. Stay calm, stay structured, keep records, do not hand out private details, do not meet alone. That weekend, Lena sent a new message. This one was friendlier on the surface. She said they were planning to refinance soon to lower their monthly costs. She said the title company needed to confirm some support details because of how the down payment was handled. She said it was standard and I should not worry. She asked if I could come in and sign off so the process could move. I read the message 3 times. It explained more than she realized. It told me there was an upcoming formal appointment. It told me my name was involved in some way. It also told me they expected me to show up, smile, and sign, like always. I did not reply right away. I opened my calendar and wrote down what she said, word for word. Then I called Asha's office and left a short message that something had been scheduled and that I needed guidance. That evening, Bryce called again. This time his tone was confident, almost cheerful. He said we could fix everything in one meeting if I stopped being difficult. He said the refinance would help Lena and that I should be proud to support her. I told him I would not discuss financial matters by phone. I told him I would handle things properly and the right way. He grew quiet for a second, then said I was being stubborn. I did not answer that. I ended the call. The next day, I received an email from Lena. It was a forwarded message from a title company. It listed a date and a time for an appointment. It also listed names of attendees. I noticed something right away. There were more chairs expected than needed for a simple signing. It looked like a meeting, not just a quick stop. I stared at the screen and felt that same clean certainty again. They were planning to pull me into a formal room and pressure me there. They believed I would fold in front of strangers to avoid discomfort. They believed I would protect their image and sacrifice my own safety. I closed my laptop, took a slow breath, and looked around my quiet condo. Then I picked up my notebook and added one more line to my timeline. It was simple. It said that a formal appointment had been scheduled and that I would not walk into it unprepared. The week of the title company appointment felt longer than it should have. Every day had the same light outside my windows, the same quiet hallways in my building, the same simple meals. But inside my head, everything was measured, not in fear, but in sequence. I kept telling myself that calm is not passivity. Calm is control. Asha called me back the morning after Lena forwarded the appointment email. She asked me to read the time and the address. She asked who was listed as an attendee. I told her the names I saw. I also told her it looked like more chairs than needed. Asha stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said I should not go alone, and I should not go without a plan. She said formal rooms are built for clarity, and clarity helps whoever is prepared. She said we would be prepared. She told me to do 3 simple things that day. First, stop discussing the meeting with Lena or Bryce. Second, gather my timeline into one clean page, with dates and short phrases. Third, make sure my accounts and alerts were locked tight, so there could not be a surprise move while I was distracted. I wrote the instructions down and did them in that order. I sent Lena a short message. I told her I received the appointment details. I told her I would attend. I also told her I would not discuss the topic by phone. I did not add blame. I did not add emotion. I kept it plain. She replied fast. She said she was glad I was coming. She said we could finally move forward. She added that Bryce was stressed and that I should be kind. I did not answer that part. Kindness had turned into a lever in their hands, and I was done being pulled by it. Bryce called later that day. He sounded friendly again, like he was trying on a new mask. He said he was happy we were going to solve things like adults. He said it would be a quick meeting, and then we could enjoy the holidays without drama. He also said I should not bring any more people into it. I told him I would attend the appointment and follow the proper process. He asked what I meant by proper. I said I meant professional. He laughed and said I always needed to feel important. I did not react. I ended the call politely. That night I sat at my kitchen table with a notepad, a pen, and my phone. I opened my calendar and my saved screenshots. I created a 1-page timeline like Asha said. I wrote the date of Thanksgiving. I wrote the time I left the table. I wrote what I saw in the pantry in simple words. I wrote the time the officer arrived. I wrote the credit union alert time the next morning. I wrote the days of my visits to the credit union, the police station lobby, and the county records office. I wrote the dates of Bryce's calls and Lena's messages. I wrote the date of the title company appointment. When I finished, I looked at the page and felt something settle in me. It was all there, clean and plain. Not a story, not a rant, just a sequence. People can argue with emotions for hours. They cannot argue with time. The next morning, I drove to the credit union again. Tessa met me in the lobby and walked me into her office. I told her there was a formal appointment related to my daughter's home and that my name had been appearing in places it should not. I asked what steps I could take to protect my accounts through that week. She suggested one more layer of verification, and she also suggested I keep my phone alerts on loud for any unusual activity. She said if anything popped up during the appointment, I should step out and call immediately. I thanked her. I did not ask her to guess who did what. I only asked for the strongest protections allowed. After I left the credit union, I drove to my storage unit and checked my lock. I opened the unit and looked at the boxes I had placed inside. I did not take anything out. I just wanted to reassure myself that my personal records were where I wanted them. In my old work, we used to say that confidence comes from knowing where things are. I felt that truth again in that small, quiet unit. Nolan called that evening. He asked how I was holding up. I told him I was fine and staying structured. He said he was proud of that. Then he said something else that mattered. He said I should not expect Lena to suddenly become brave in front of Bryce and Mara. He said she might freeze or try to please everyone. He said I should plan for that, not take it personally in the moment. I told him I understood. Hearing it from him helped me keep my expectations realistic. I did not want to walk into that room hoping for a heartfelt apology. Hope can make people careless. I wanted to walk in ready for whatever truth appeared. 2 days before the appointment, Asha met me again. This time it was shorter. She looked at my timeline page and nodded. She asked me if I had kept my communication short. I told her yes. She asked if I had met privately with anyone from Lena's household. I told her no. She reminded me that my calm tone was part of my protection. She said if I raised my voice, it would become the story. She said if I stayed steady, the facts would become the story. She also told me to prepare for pressure inside the room. She said Bryce might try to talk over people. Mara might try to shame me with family words. Lena might cry. Asha told me that none of those behaviors change what is real. She told me my job was not to win an argument. My job was to keep my boundaries and let professionals do theirs. I listened closely. Then I nodded and said I could do that. At home, I kept my routine plain. I cooked simple food. I took short walks. I went to bed on time. I did not scroll through the group chat for long. I only checked it once a day, took screenshots if needed, and then closed it. I did not want their noise living in my head. The night before the appointment, Lena called again. Her voice sounded softer than it had in days. She said she missed me. She said she did not want us to be distant. She said she was tired and scared. For a moment, I felt the old pull in my chest, the part of me that still saw her as a child who needed me. I held that feeling gently, but I did not let it steer me. I told her I loved her. I told her I wanted peace too. I told her the way to get peace was truth and clear steps. She said Bryce thought I was trying to control them. I said I was not trying to control them. I said I was trying to protect my name. She asked what she should do. I told her she should listen carefully in the appointment, and she should not agree to anything she did not understand. I also told her she should ask herself why my mail ended up in her pantry. She went quiet after that. Then she said she had to go. The call ended without warmth. I slept, but not deeply. I woke up before my alarm. I sat at the edge of my bed and took slow breaths. I reminded myself I did not need to perform. I did not need to impress anyone. I only needed to be consistent. I dressed in plain clothes, clean and simple. I packed a small folder with my timeline page and a few printed screenshots of the group chat messages that mattered most. I did not bring stacks of papers. I did not want to look like I was staging something. I wanted to look like a person who brought order into a messy situation. I left my condo early and drove to a coffee shop near the title company building. I chose a seat by the window. I ordered something small and drank water. I watched people come and go. My phone stayed on the table, face up, with alerts on. I did not feel like I was waiting for trouble. I felt like I was waiting for the right room to do the right work. About 20 minutes before the appointment, I saw Bryce's car pull in. Bryce stepped out first. He looked sharp, like he was going to a celebration. Mara got out next, already talking. Lena followed them, holding her coat closed with both hands. She looked smaller than I remembered from Thanksgiving. Quinn was with them too, phone in hand, glancing around like he wanted content. They walked toward the building. Bryce pointed at the entrance and spoke with a confident posture. Mara nodded hard. Lena kept her eyes forward. Quinn lifted the phone and filmed something for a moment, then lowered it when they got close to the door. I sat still. I finished my drink slowly. I checked the time and stood up. I did not rush. I did not hide. I walked out and crossed the street with steady steps. Inside the building, the air smelled like clean carpet and office paper. The lobby had soft lighting and a quiet echo. A receptionist sat behind a desk and looked up as I approached. I gave my name and said I had an appointment. She checked a list and nodded. She said I could take a seat and someone would come get me. I sat down in a chair near a wall. My hands rested on my knees. My breathing stayed slow. Bryce walked by with Lena and Mara. He saw me and gave a quick smile that did not reach his eyes. He said we were all here now and could put the drama behind us. I nodded once and did not speak. A door opened down the hall. A staff member called our names and asked us to follow. We walked into a conference room with a long table. There were more chairs than needed. A pitcher of water sat in the center with clean glasses beside it. The room felt too prepared for a simple signing. I took my seat without hesitation. I placed my small folder in front of me and kept it closed. Bryce sat across from me like he owned the space. Mara sat beside him. Lena sat between them, close enough to feel their heat. Quinn hovered near the wall, looking for an angle. I looked at the door, then back at the table. My heart did not pound, my hands did not shake. The noise that followed me for days was outside this room now. In here, only one thing mattered: process. The title company staff member closed the conference room door behind us and introduced herself. She said she would guide the appointment and make sure everyone understood what was being signed. She said a notary would witness everything. Her tone was polite but firm, like she had done this many times. Bryce leaned back in his chair and acted relaxed. He said he was glad we could finally get things handled. He said it would be quick if everyone stayed reasonable. Mara nodded and said family should not fight over paperwork. Lena kept her hands folded and stared at the water pitcher. The staff member asked for IDs. I handed mine over without hesitation. Bryce did the same, smiling as if this was routine. Mara did not need to provide one, but she still held hers up like she wanted to be counted. Quinn was told he was not an attendee and could not record inside the room. Quinn looked annoyed and said it was just for memories. The staff member repeated the rule. Quinn stepped back toward the wall and lowered the phone. Then the staff member said there was a change to the meeting format. She said additional parties had requested to be present because of an active concern tied to identity details and address records. Bryce's posture shifted. He asked who requested that. The staff member said she could not debate it, only confirm that it was logged and approved. A moment later, the door opened again. Asha Patel walked in and took a seat beside me. She greeted the room politely and said she represented me for this matter. Bryce's face tightened. He said I did not need a lawyer for family business. Asha said she was there to keep things clear and professional. After Asha, Officer Kim Reyes entered with a folder in hand. He did not look angry. He looked focused. He said he was there because a report had been filed and because there was a need to document what was being discussed today. Bryce tried to smile again and said this was getting silly. The officer said he was not there for opinions, only for facts. Then Tessa Ward entered. Bryce looked at her and asked who she was. Tessa introduced herself as a fraud investigator from my credit union. She said her role was to confirm account activity and explain why additional protections had been triggered. Bryce's mouth opened as if he had a joke ready, but nothing came out. The title company staff member placed a thin stack of papers on the table, but she did not slide them forward. She said she would not proceed until a specific question was answered. She asked why mail in my name was being routed to Lena's address and why there were recent attempts to change my contact details tied to my accounts. She said the title company could not ignore that. Bryce said he did not know anything about mail. He said I must have mixed things up. He said the account issue had nothing to do with them. Lena whispered that she did not understand what was happening. Mara said the whole thing was an attack on their family. Officer Reyes said he had responded on Thanksgiving and had logged that I reported finding envelopes in my name inside the pantry area. He said the envelopes were collected and recorded. He said the purpose of today was not to argue, but to confirm whether there was an innocent explanation. Tessa then explained, in simple terms, that someone had tried to change my phone number and mailing address on my account. She said the attempt failed because my alerts and device rules blocked it. She said the timing matched the day after Thanksgiving. She said this was why she advised extra safeguards. Bryce leaned forward and said they were accusing him without proof. Asha replied calmly that no one was accusing anyone in that moment. She said we were addressing risk, records, and responsibility. She said that if Bryce truly had no involvement, then he should welcome clarity. The title company staff member asked about the refinance purpose and how the down payment had been handled. Bryce said I had helped them and that it was a gift. He said that meant I should sign off and stop making problems. Asha opened her folder and placed a single document on the table, face down at first. She said the down payment support was not a casual gift. She said it was documented through proper channels at the time, with conditions tied to the use of my name and the handling of records. She turned the document over and pointed to the section that mattered. She said the agreement required clear consent for any use of my identity details, and it also allowed immediate action if my information was used without permission. Lena's face changed when she saw it. She looked at Bryce like she was trying to read his thoughts. Bryce stared at the page, then looked away. Mara asked what that meant. Asha said it meant the title company could not proceed today, and it meant I had the right to enforce the agreement through lawful steps. The staff member nodded and said the signing was paused effective immediately. She said the file would be placed on hold. She said no refinance would move forward until the concerns were resolved through the proper process. She asked Bryce and Lena to return any documents they had been given for review, and she said all future communication would go through official channels. Bryce stood up quickly and said this was unfair. Officer Reyes asked him to sit back down and keep his voice steady. Bryce sat, but his hands moved restlessly on the table. Lena's eyes filled, and she asked why Bryce never told her about any of this. Bryce said he did not know what she was talking about. Tessa said she would keep the account protections in place and that my mailing address would remain locked. Asha said she would file the next step with the agreement and provide the needed notices. The title staff member closed the folder with both hands, like she was ending a meeting, not starting one. Officer Reyes then said he needed to ask Bryce a few direct questions outside the room. He said it would be easier without an audience. Bryce looked around as if he expected someone to rescue him. Mara started to speak, but the officer raised one hand and said he only needed cooperation. I stayed quiet. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just watched the room settle into silence as the title agent slid the papers back into her folder and said, in a flat, professional voice, that the signing was canceled.